For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome. Sri Lanka has seen unprecedented chaos and headwinds in its economic condition as well as political turmoil in the past 5 or 6 months. But slowly and gradually, the country is coming out of that period of trouble and leading that effort to bring the country back to normal and bring the economic condition to stability is President Ranil Wickremesinghe. I'm delighted to welcome him on this program, President. Thank you for giving us this time. And let me start straight away with where is the economic condition now? What is Sri Lanka looking at as far as the solutions to the problems are concerned?
We have discussions with the IMF. We have come to a staff level agreement. But now we have to deal with our creditors. Right. We didn't have to do that early. We didn't have this serious crisis. Right. But now we have to deal with our creditors. We are unable to service our debts. Once we have a final, come to a conclusion with the creditors, then we will go back to the IMF board. So if you are looking at what is the phase we are in, okay, we are implementing some of the prior actions that are required under the staff level agreement. And we've started the discussions with the creditors, the official creditors, bilateral creditors. Once that's over, I think we will do with the private creditors. I'm going to Japan to discuss with the Japanese government their role. They have already started some talks. We started the talks with India, but at a lower level. Right. We are just starting the talks with China. We'll have to go to a high level, but we have to now see whether we are doing it before the party conference or after. Since we have just started, we are just starting the talks. It may have to be just after the...
With China, you mean?
With China, it may have to be after the...
party congress.
Yeah. But we first talk with Japan, then we'll have the discussion with India.
So I'm sure in the past also they have helped. How has India's aid, if you've seen from January to now, about $3.8 billion or $4 billion, how has that helped? Has it helped stabilize the situation?
It has helped because we were able to get much needed foreign goods in here, but that alone is not enough.
Right.
And for India, I think they really stretched it out. Bangladesh also gave 200 million, which for them is a big amount. We are thankful to the two countries, right, to India especially. But that's why when I took over, I started talking with the IMF and our central bank of how much we can find from here. Right. And we've been able to generate the minimum required amount of foreign exchange, but that won't do. We have to go ahead.
Yeah, but you managed to stabilize the situation in the country considerably in the sense of the chaos, the kind of anger that was there. It seems to have subsided. How have you managed to do that?
That basically came out of the shortage. First was the issue of agriculture. The whole agriculture economy had collapsed. Secondly was the shortage of foreign exchange, the shortage of fuel, which led to it. Actually, in the first set of demonstrations, are really backed by the middle class in and around Colombo.
Right. That's true. So, one of the mysteries during this period was that China did not step in for bilateral aid. I mean, have you been able to solve that? Why is that? Because it's been a big friend of Sri Lanka in the past.
No, the mystery is also why we went and signed the agreement with China for aid when we didn't have 3 months foreign exchange reserve. So that's something people have not explained.
Right.
So from there, when we signed that agreement, then we got ourselves stuck into this 3 months foreign exchange rule. My view is that we should not have done that. We should have gone straight to them. Other was the outstanding issue of really the fertilizer, and that also played a role in China's attitude.
Which was rejected here.
Yeah, which are rejected here.
Right.
And The government didn't agree for a third party to inspect it. If he had agreed, this would have been over. So I think that's another factor which influenced China's stand.
Right, but you think they will come back to offer you some more bilateral loans? How is
No, what we want at the moment is agreement on between the three creditors as to how they are going to give us debt relief.
Through IMF?
No,
Or debt relief for their own bilateral loans?
Yes,
bilateral loans.
That's the main issue.
Oh, I see. Okay. So let me turn to a little more geopolitical issues, because you are one of the better known statesmen in this region who understands geopolitics. Just as you took over, the problem of that Chinese ship docking in Hambantota happened. And India, of course, had its objections. How did you handle that? And do you think it could have been handled differently?
No, actually, firstly, Hambantota is not a military harbour. We have not been giving it out for military purposes. This ship had been approved earlier, just as at the very end of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's tenure, and it had come in as a research ship. So that's how it had been okayed. We are inquiring into it, how this happened so fast.
Right.
Now we have said no objections. So once that had happened and I had taken over.
Right.
And if you were to if we were to change that decision, we needed some basis, something which now that if that had been forthcoming, you could have studied it and taken a decision.
Right.
But that was not available, and then we couldn't get into an argument which we are going to lose. We did delay its coming in here.
Right.
And then, of course, by that time the ship was virtually in our waters. It was a difficult decision,
Right.
but it was in keeping with our policy that once we give permission, that there must be some reason for us to withdraw permission. So that we could not find the reasons, we asked your government also, and they had virtually come up to the area, but they had said, what they said is that they are not going to do anything harmful to India.
Okay.
But that was in our waters.
Right.
Outside that, if they had this equipment and they wanted to spy on India, they could have done it.
Yes.
We could only assure that.
Yes.
As long as it didn't take place, and we are confident nothing took place
took
like
place.
that.
Okay.
So this is what had happened. We had given permission on the science, so now we are looking at reclassifying civilian ships, non-military ships.
Right.
The problem is that any non-military ship can be used for military purpose. A cruise liner can be used to bring in troops.
How do you ensure that it doesn't get used?
That's what we are looking at now.
Right.
To work a new system out.
And did you have a very frank dialogue with India at that point in time?
Yes, we did. I told them this.
And they were finally understanding about it when...
yeah, I don't think they were happy, but they accepted the situation.
Okay. So are there any new protocols that you are sort of looking at? I mean, you said that you will now reclassify the ships, but
That's
with India, how would you... I mean, India says that there should be some red lines, there should be some, assurance.
Our one is reclassification.
Right.
So we have to work that out. It's not an easy one.
Right.
And then any ships that come in the new classification, we would hold back.
Right.
And inquire into the matter. So what we have told India is that we will not do anything that will jeopardize the security of India. And so far Sri Lanka hasn't done. I mean, this government or the other governments.
Sure.
We haven't done that, and we are very, very careful.
I see. I've seen you saying this, I mean, I've heard you saying this at that National Defence College lecture also, that we are not here to jeopardize India's security. I think you also used a very interesting term, don't use Hambantota as a punching bag.
That's true.
But is it being used as a punching bag?
We are getting hammered for Hambantota directly and indirectly everywhere. So first, so I said,
Because China goes to Indian Ocean in very many ports. Like
it has very many ports. And also, before all this, in 2003, I agreed with Prime Minister Vajpayee that we should use that they should come and develop Trincomalee.
Right.
Because under the letters of exchange in the 87 agreement, we had to first talk to them, to India, about the oil tanks.
Yes.
So we wanted to use the oil tanks. I spoke to Prime Minister Vajpayee.
Right.
And he said, yes, they are interested.
Yes.
We'll work something out. And then I said, why don't you look at the future, look at the Trincomalee
Port itself.
Port itself.
Right.
Of course, we went out of power and nothing happened. But even in 2015, that was the idea. By that time, even President Mahinda Rajapaksa had given had permission to shift the. We are the ones who asked for a power station.
Right.
It was to go in, but President Rajapaksa had allowed it to be moved to Sampur.
Sampur, yes.
From where we had originally selected.
Yes.
So this has been going on, and we were developing Trincomalee. So it's a question of when and how.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that I have given anything. If at all I have given is to India.
So Trincomalee now, what's the position? I think it's been.
So now we are look at how we are going to develop it, and we are working on it. Then we talk with India.
Also, Kankeshanturai, if I just talk about ports.
India was going to help us to do KKS. KK is a small port which looked at the smaller ships from India.
Yeah.
The important one is Hambantota, that will service the whole of the Bay of Bengal.
Right. So that brings me to the geopolitics of Indo-Pacific and Indian Ocean. I think you mentioned that there is Indo-Pacific and there is Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
And the two oceans were joined by ASEAN countries. So how do you see this contest in Indo-Pacific or Indian Ocean?
The ASEAN countries said Indo-Pacific are two different areas.
Yes.
Unlike the earlier one, which went on Prime Minister Abe's statement itself.
Yes.
No, what we say, look, they are two different, geopolitics are different. In the case of Indo-Pacific, in the Pacific, the hub and spoke system worked.
Right.
In addition to hub and spoke, we must remember that China and USA also worked together for a long time.
Yes, before they became rivals.
Yeah. So that is the system that worked there.
Right.
In Indian Ocean, there was no hub and spoke system, but we had our understandings among ourselves, and some of us regarded India as a net security provider. So anyway, within it we were able to manage without tension.
True.
And my idea was to develop the freedom of navigation, to reduce tension there. While in Pacific, the tension takes place in the ocean between Japan and Taiwan and up to about Vietnam.
Right.
Actually, there is not much tension in that way in the Indian Ocean. Your tension is in the Himalayas, where the three nuclear powers meet, and then what is happening in the Horn of Africa, where there is a struggle going on.
Yes.
So it's completely different to the Pacific. So our view is treat this separately.
Don't conflate it with
yes. So we can. But if you go to take all that as we are not the same, but we have to work together from time immemorial.
Right.
China has been coming into the Indian Ocean, and ships from Arabia and India has been going to China.
Yes.
And this influence of both have spread. That's why you have Indo-China.
Absolutely.
So let's when we look at it, when we call the Indo-Pacific, accept the reality that there are two different systems.
Which have worked over the years like that. But Sri Lanka being at a very strategic location geographically, how do you see yourself in the coming years, not just in terms of geopolitical contest, but also in terms of connectivity, trade, going forward? What is going to be Sri Lanka's role in your view?
Yeah. So Sri Lanka has a big role to play in connectivity and economic base. Also, if you look at it strategically, the two channels 8 and 9 are important for us as much as it's important for India, because all the shipping must go through that.
Right.
But we also have separate access through Trincomalee into the Bay of Bengal. No, but we can be a sort of a logistic point. There is no logistic center in the Indian Ocean. Between Dubai and Singapore, there's a vacuum.
Right.
And that itself is useful. It can service part of the Bay of Bengal and also India. So that's where we feel logistics will be a main one. And we develop from there.
And you've also spoken about upgrading the existing FTA or updating it or making it a comprehensive economic partnership with India. In that respect, where are you now? I mean, what is the work going on there?
We've restarted it. We are looking at the domestic end here. We finalize it and then we'll talk to India.
Right. So also I sort of heard you saying ease of doing business needs to be introduced into Sri Lanka.
That's right.
You have a special emphasis on that right now?
We have an emphasis. We want to have a business ministry also, maybe attach it to one of the other commercial ministries. So that business takes really... today we haven't got to think of sectors, whether help in this industry or that. That comes naturally when but it has to be ease of doing business, which we haven't had so far.
That hasn't happened here. Also, renewable energy and connectivity with India
Yes,
is one of your focus areas.
Yes.
How is that working in the north
Well,
of the
we've
country?
started now. I think with Adani there has been one agreement. There's another agreement on renewable energy with another Australian company. We are going ahead. It's not merely renewable energy, but I think it's also the question of green hydrogen.
Right.
We have the potential. On both sides of the Park Strait, there's a big potential for wind energy also.
Sure. Also, one of the important factors in Sri Lanka's economy would be tourism. And India sort of gets maximum number of Indians come to Sri Lanka. How are you going to boost it further? Is there any
We have to do it. We have to do that. I mean, I told the tourist board authority that I am not satisfied if you have 500, if you have over 1 billion people,
Right.
you must ensure at least 3-4 million come
here. One of the
not in hundreds of thousands.
That's true.
Count it in millions.
Absolutely. And one of the proposals I again heard you, or maybe I read it somewhere, that you've said that Indian currency will be made acceptable.
Yes, we are doing that. Yes.
Will that help?
That will also
boosting
help.
it?
Yeah.
I see. Okay. So 2 or 3 more questions on energy security itself. One of the factors in the recent chaos was the high prices of energy. And that has happened because of the Russia-Ukraine war. How do you see the war panning out, and what is the effect going to be on Asia, if not just Europe?
No, one issue was also that we were subsidizing energy. And that was one of the big reasons for the crisis that took place. Because subsidizing energy meant that the electricity board couldn't function, it was not paying its bills to the petroleum corporation.
Right.
That was not servicing the banks. So this is why we have had, yes, and energy has been, I think energy as far as we are concerned, I think it will go up again for India all sometime from, maybe from December till about April. Prices will be up. That's basically the impact of the Ukraine war.
How do you see that war panning out? I mean, is it sort of creating a new world disorder, if not world order?
Well, militarily it's a fight going on in Ukraine. At one time it favored Russia, now it has favored Ukraine. Will it come back? Will it favor Russia? I don't know, I can't talk of events. But more than that, it has created disorder in the oil markets and the food markets.
Yes.
Now that is a problem. I personally think that both sides and the West should get down and come to some agreement, because it's the rest of us who are feeling the pressure.
Exactly. So, in this respect, do you think India can play some role there in trying to resolve that issue?
I think India can play a role.
What about now taking India-Sri Lanka partnership to the next level? What would you propose to do it? I mean, there was the very close bonding in the past 7-8 months, the help India gave, hopefully without strings. So, how are you going to assure India that you will continue to sort of be with India and look at its own interest, as your own interest as well as India's interest? What are you proposing?
We've been working, and we have to discuss some of the issues, because sometimes India will work within the Quad.
Right.
We work outside the Quad.
Right.
And that's one issue. So, I mean, it has to be at different levels now, facets from what I can see. Indian Ocean is developing separately, and how we interact with each other, not only with India. Secondly is China, and the presence of China and the Belt and the Road Initiative. We consider the Belt and the Road Initiative as a commercial. If it has any defense implications or military implications, we won't be there. Of course, with that, China is expanding its presence in the Indian Ocean.
Yes.
Then India is already there. Now, I think for India, it's a question of how fast are you growing.
Right.
That's the internal issue, because if you do that, the India, of course, didn't go to RCEP.
Right.
They had own reasons.
Yes.
But I think RCEP will gradually come in there. But again, China is there together with Japan, and so our interest has been in commercial and economic.
With China.
With China. we can't go to war with anyone, and we want freedom of navigation here.
True.
That's where we are.
Yeah.
So we've got to work the relationship out just as much as India is working its relationship out with US
Yes.
while having relations with Russia. So all of us have the same problem.
Of course, you have to keep the balance going. That's true. One of the tricky issues or thorny issues in the India-Sri Lanka relations is the fishermen's issue. There have been proposals about joint fishing zones, or maybe look at some new innovative methods. Would you encourage that from your side?
I don't think the northern fishermen will accept it.
Uh-huh.
They want their fishing zone to be theirs.
Right.
When I was Prime Minister, it was agreed that given to 2 or 3 years, the Indian fishermen will be persuaded to go for deep sea trawling.
Right.
Now that has not taken place yet, because at some time it's not a question of the Sri Lankan Coast Guard. Some of these people will decide to take matters to their own
In
hands.
their own hands, yes.
Some time back, I remember in 2002 or 3, LTT came and caught them and shot some of them.
Right.
We don't want that to happen. But if the if the Sri Lankan fishermen feel that Indian fishermen are coming further and further into the area, there's going to be a natural
Pushback.
pushback.
Yeah, right. So, but we'll have to talk that out. I suppose both sides will have to do
We
that.
have been talking for some time on that.
I know, but no solution.
I think Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's government, then Mr. Sirisena's government, of which I was the Prime Minister,
Yes.
then Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's government. So we are the fourth one, but we have to come to some agreement on that.
True.
I mean, it doesn't affect the south, but it's a livelihood of the northern fishermen.
For the northern. So, talking about northern areas, what is your vision for development of northern areas?
We are getting a plan together, especially the development of Trincomalee and coming in of renewable energy. So that has a lot of scope for the northern economy.
So you'll have on the west you'll have the renewable energy projects perhaps, and in the east you'll have the port project for the northern
Here we
areas.
have the northern project. It also depends how Tamil Nadu develops, because all your industrialization is in the north of Tamil Nadu.
Right.
Are you going to push down?
To south of Tamil Nadu will be a question.
If you want to overtake Maharashtra, you have to come down.
Yes.
Then again, we can become the ports for the southern Tamil Nadu. What you need initially is a good ferry service like the Dover service.
Right.
Start from there. So it's a win-win situation. If Tamil Nadu pushes down, then they can get the ports
Come
here,
further
and
down,
our benefit is the logistics of it.
True. Let me also turn to a little bit of political issues. India insists on 13th Amendment being implemented, and then there is the second issue here internally for you for the President's powers to be diluted or whittled down. Where is that in the Parliament? First, if you can tell me about the...
No, President's powers being diluted is separate from the 13th
Yes,
Amendment.
completely separate.
Yeah.
I'm saying two issues,
Yeah.
but this one first...
13th Amendment, we have been talking with the Tamil parties. I think we can come to some arrangement.
Right.
It's overall development, 13th Amendment and all.
Yes.
On the President's, for me, most important issue outside 13th Amendment is the electoral system. Because all the corruptions come out of that.
Okay.
Now, unless you tackle the election system first, you will not have a good government.
Right.
Because you have this preference system in which you are fighting your own candidates.
Sure.
Cost of election is about 4 times what it is. So you are dependent on others to help you. So we need the PR system. The question is whether we want to have a list system without a preference, or whether we have the dual system. I think we have to sort that out.
Okay.
The question of the quality of the candidates, the people who are selected to parliament. Now this is the core issue.
Right.
We are ducking that because all the parties are coalitions, and the smaller parties want one system and the larger parties want another. So you come to this. But the country doesn't want it. This is the main issue.
Yeah.
I think once you address that, then a new parliament selected accordingly can decide on the presidential system also.
Right. And about the presidential system, you're talking about the Indian insistence on northern areas development. That assistance has helped Sri
Northern
Lanka.
development is something new which I have taken on after I became president.
Right.
That will go ahead, which will need India's help and others' help also.
And what are the Tamil party's views on like the current situation? Are they helping you? They are cooperating with you? The
Well,
Tamil
some of the
MPs?
members cooperate, others don't.
So are you faced with some kind of resistance in the parliament, because it's quite chaotic like in any other democratic country?
No, we will go to parliament and if the parliament don't want to pass it, was something that the people want, I'll tell the people, look, they are not doing it.
But I must say one more thing for you, that you also acted very tough on the protesters after they sort of subsided a little bit, and you said action must be taken on those who have taken law in their hands. Has that been a bit of a concern for civil society here, or have they accepted it?
For the country, they have accepted it. I came in because a large number of people wanted law and order maintained.
Right.
Especially when you try to take over parliament. What are you going to do? Are you going to wait if they try to take over the Lok Sabha?
No, obviously nobody wants
So we also wouldn't wait.
Right.
Country wanted it. There were some who had activists on the civil society who joined these violent groups.
Right.
They thought the government was going to fall, and then they were trying to see what role they had played. Some religious dignitaries, some political parties some of them tried to take a free ride.
Right.
The whole thing collapsed.
Right. No, so are you?
I was asked to send my letter of resignation, and otherwise they burned down the house.
That was a big loss, I think. It was.
Yeah, but if they burn down my house, then there is no reason to send a letter of resignation.
I think that worked in your favor.
They should have said.
They should have blackmailed you there, perhaps.
They should have first tell the into which they burned down the house, and then tell me to.
Then you became more adamant, I suppose.
And no, then they want to take over parliament.
Right.
And fortunately, the army acted at that stage. I told the army to preserve parliament. There no other way.
There's the sanctity of parliament had to be
Yes, so
preserved.
we can't. I mean, they were going to prevent the election of a president.
Right.
So now, can you justify any of those?
No, none of those.
You can't. No country.
So I hope that people would have understood that. I'm sure in Sri Lanka.
Most of them
people
do.
have.
I mean, your government acts when you have to maintain law and order.
Of course, you crack down hard when that happens.
No other way.
What about some inquiry into those incidents, those days?
They are inquiring into some of them. Yeah.
And you will act according to
We'll act
the law?
according to what the evidence is there.
Right. Okay. One final question, President. You are an avid reader. I mean, I've heard you a number of times. We have interacted. We've done a couple of interviews in the past. I've always found you interested in geopolitics, the international situation. How do you see the world in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years is going to be have a big question mark over it. But I don't think the big challenges are going to come in the next 5 years unless we force it upon ourselves.
Okay.
Like what happened on Ukraine.
Right.
Now another big challenge is it's Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth who held this Commonwealth together.
Yes.
Can Britain and the others hold it together, or will it disappear? Then it create another vacuum. At least a value system was being transferred by the Commonwealth.
Right.
So it's in a very, very uncertain situation. In my view, if you look at China, China military won't be in a position still to take on the US or be a threat for at least another 15 years.
Right.
So are you trying to accelerate it, and will you cause a conflict because of that? Like what happened in Ukraine, miscalculations on both sides.
Yes.
And that is led to this, and no one can get out of it.
No.
Neither the West nor Russia.
It's become a trap that no one can
become
get
a trap. Yeah, that's what you've got to look at. So there are so many points that are coming like that, which can be dangerous
and can't be predicted really.
Yeah, and sort of new politicians now appealing to different segments of the electorate will also find it difficult to hold it. Disappearance of traditional parties, replacement with new parties on different interests.
So does the region need a BIMSTEC? Can BIMSTEC work as a counterbalance to
BIMSTEC has been slow.
Slow?
Yeah.
Would you like it to get accelerated?
I can't see that happening.
No?
No. We have to have the administrative infrastructure and the economic infrastructure which we haven't got for trade integration.
So would you take the
we are looking at working together with RCEP also.
Okay.
So if you have an agreement with India and Bangladesh, then the whole from India up to Japan we are covered.
Right, that's true.
And Australia, we have to deal with that. So, but what we are going to do, what Indian Ocean, the Indian Ocean, what's going to happen is a big question mark.
That's true. The security of Indian Ocean, does that worry you?
I mean, if there are no tensions, it's quite all right, we can manage it, because I can't see a major issue coming up, even the number of warships, even Chinese and otherwise a minimal amount. It's the future threats that are worrying everyone.
That's worrying.
Submarines may be there, but it's the future threats that are worrying everyone. But I think you can work to see how it spans out.
Any message to India or the Indian people who are looking at Sri Lanka with a lot of concern? I mean, at least the people, and the government of course has helped, Indian government. What message would you like to convey?
2 words.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me thank you on that note, President. Thank you for your time and very insightful comments as usual. Thank you very much. That was President Ranil Wickremesinghe speaking to me in Colombo, and we will have more occasions, I'm sure, as things pan out. Thank you very much for the time.